Hey you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back to another Project Life Process video. So in this video, I'm working on week 31 from 2017, and I'm starting this video off a little bit differently, but I just wanted to first let you know that I did record this live with me speaking as I was working, and for whatever reason, the audio did not come out well, so I just decided to do a voiceover. So that's why if my hands don't match my voice, then that's the reason why. I just wanted to give you a heads up there. But like I said, I'm doing this a little bit differently. And the reason is because when I went to look through the photos that I had taken for the week of week 31, I really did not have very many photos. And the reason was because that week I decided to take photos for my daughter, who was going to be a senior this year. Then my daughter, who's a cheerleader, I was taking pictures of all of the cheerleaders. And so I took some special just of her at the very, very end. And then my younger daughter, who is just turned 13, she wanted me to take some pictures of her as well to document turning 13. And I normally do that anyways, but she was the one that reminded me to do so. So I actually ended up taking a lot of portraits, and because there were so many and I ended up behind my computer so much of the week, I just didn't have a lot of everyday shots. Now, I could have filled this spread up with more text, more writing, more stories, but because I had taken pictures of each girl and I got several shots that I loved, but in particularly these ones that I love so much, I decided that I would blow them up to a 6x8. And if you notice, one of the 4x6s and two of the 3x4s make a 6x8. So my plan is that I would stagger these photos throughout the spread, and then they would take up most of the spread, these photos. So I really have to determine then, because I'm going to have to splice these photos up, which photos are going to be cut at the top and which are going to be cut at the bottom, because, cut into a 3x4, because I want them to be staggered. That means two of the photos are going to have the tops of the pictures on a 4x6. And then one of the photos is going to be, cut at the top. And since both of their faces were at the top, what I'm doing now is I'm measuring to figure out which photo then would be best as, to be cut down the middle. I was thinking this one of my daughter Tess would be cut a good down the middle. I thought it might go right down her nose, but it's cutting a little too close to the eye. Same with my younger daughter. It was cutting a little too close to the eye as well. So after measuring this photo of my daughter Bella, what I decided is it is closest to the eye, but in using this picture, it is going to allow me then to keep at least her face intact. So I decided to go ahead and to use that picture that I would cut that down at the top to two 3x4s, and then the bottom would be one 4x6. So you'll definitely see that coming up as I begin to start cutting these out. Right now I am using a clear T ruler, which is actually making this really easy to be able to figure out where I want to cut that. I will definitely have that linked below. Also, one thing that I didn't mention that I think I kind of pointed out a little bit, and you may not be able to see it very well in this video, but one of the pictures left this ink blob on my daughter's eye. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to reprint it. I actually haven't reprinted it yet, but I definitely want to, because in real life, it does look pretty bright blue, and you can tell that it does not belong in the photo. Anyway, so I'm pretty excited about working on this spread. As I'm working right now, I do not have a plan. So what I printed these out, and what I decided was I would cut them out. I would get them in the spread, make sure that I like it, make sure that I, enjoy the change. And then I would look and see what I have left and what pictures to print out. You can see that I already had a couple 4x6s already printed out. And I believe that would leave me with 2 more 4x6s and then 2 3x4s. Now, that's not a lot of space for telling stories. And so I thought maybe I would do an insert so that I could have a few more stories or photos, because there actually was a lot of photos that I loved that I took of my girls, highlighting the ones that I took of the cheerleaders, whatever. But I decided against it. I decided to keep this layout really simple and just really highlight the photos, which does mean I am going to sacrifice some stories, or I'm not going to get all of the stories told that I want to, because I'm not going to have the space. But I'm okay with that this week. And I'm okay with that this week because I've done it like in the last, 30 weeks. I've had a lot of stories getting told. So it's fun to be able to do something a little bit different. So you can see that I'm interchanging my big cutter. So this is my big cutter. I've had this for years and years. And like I think I probably mentioned in my studio tour video, which by the way, if you haven't seen it, I'll have it linked below. I've never actually had to worry about replacing the blade because as it cuts through, it's self-sharpening. So it's kind of amazing. It's pretty awesome, actually. I really, really love it. So a couple things that I wanted to just make note as you're cutting out these pictures and fitting them into the spots. So once you've cut it in half, or once you've cut that 4x6 into 2 3x4s, if you want or need to make an adjustment to get it into the pockets, make sure you're cutting the outside edge instead of the inside edge, because you definitely want that photo to seem seamless from one pocket to the next. So that is just one of my big pieces of advice. And also to remember which one you're actually cutting. I almost cut the wrong photo, which I would have been really bummed about. But all right, you guys, so now I'm going to do the fun part, which is actually fitting it all in and to see how everything looks together. You guys, you'll probably hear me say this again, but I really, really, really love the way this turned out. I think it's a fun departure from what I've normally done, which is just have a bunch of 4x6 photos, but instead to do these large photos. I really love how it turns out and the way that it looks together. And of course, I just love that it's my 3 girls and it's capturing this moment of time of where they're at. And I also really love that it just happens to be, the end of the summer and the beginning of the school year, because I'll probably want to do this again in May. I just love being able to see the difference between, the beginning of the year and the end of the year. All right, you guys, so I'm starting in on the layout now. So there's a couple things that I decided to do. You know that I'm keeping it pretty simple. Like I'd already explained that I'm not going to be doing an insert, so I'm not going to be adding a lot more stories. So because of that, I decided to, instead of doing 2 other 4x6 cards, I decided to split those pockets up to make it 2 3x4 so that I could maximize my space, so that I could add a couple more photos and then a couple more journaling cards. So that was one of the techniques that I decided to use to get more stories told this week. The other thing that I decided to use, again, I think this might be my 3rd week in a row, is to use the This Week card. That is then allowing me to highlight some of the things that were going on each day of the week. So I'm not going into a lot of depth and a lot of detail in that card, but it's letting me do little bits and pieces about what was going on during the week. Now, that definitely means that I'm missing some things and I'm not telling all the stories, but I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that because of all the stories that I've told in the weeks prior. So I think that that's where Project Life really shines. And I know that I've talked to you guys about this before, whether or not you're doing it on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis. Telling our stories week by week or month by month is giving us this really awesome overview of our life. And then I don't think that we have to tell every story. And I love that. That's one of the reasons why I do that 12 of 12 project, where I take pictures all day long for 1 month, because it gives a really great overview of what's going on in our life at that moment. But I don't have to do it every day and get every detail. So that's how I feel about Project Life, where some weeks can be more simple and some weeks can be more complicated, and together they create this beautiful story. So I would encourage you to definitely think of Project Life that way, especially if you want to mix it up and do something a little bit different, like I'm doing this week using these large photos, which I really have never done before. I think I've done only a couple of times. So it's fun to be able to mix it up, keep it so you're not getting bored of just doing the exact same thing every week. So I would definitely encourage you to check it out. So a couple of the kits that I'm using this time is I pulled out the Ali Edwards Fun Kit, and I decided that didn't really work for this week. So then I grabbed the Lost and Found kit, and I really love that. I pulled out 2 cards, that the one that says lose yourself in the things you love, for that's where you will find yourself too. That literally sums up my entire week. I do love taking pictures. I especially love taking pictures of my family. So it just kind of summed it up for me right there. So I thought that would be absolutely perfect. And then the other one that I'm using says looking, seeking, hoping, I think is what it says. And what I ended up doing with that card is I decided to write a little love note to my daughter, who's a senior this year. Was this the week before school started? I think this might have been a couple weeks before school started, but I decided to write her this love note that paired perfectly with that picture that I had taken of her. And it's really all just about how I have these hopes and dreams for her, but ultimately it is her life. And I want her to remember that she's stronger than she thinks she is, and that she is capable of doing anything that she sets her mind to and puts her heart into. So just a love note from her, just to kind of, clarify exactly, where she is in this life. It's her senior year. And so it's kind of big time, it's just the culmination of everything that she's been working towards this whole time. So I told her at the very beginning of the school year, I'm like, this is the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of ending, all those 12 years that you've been working towards graduating and moving on with the rest of your life. So anyways, I thought that would be a really great little note to add to the book. Also, just something to remember. And I do like to add little love notes from here and there. It doesn't all have to be about stories, what we did and what's going on, but we can add little notes to our family and just how we're feeling about them in any given moment, especially if they're working towards a goal or whatever it is. I think that's something really great to add to Project Life. So maybe a story idea for you guys to consider there. All right, so for the title card, I decided to use a photo. Now, if you remember from week 30, I actually almost used this photo from week 30. I really loved it. I wanted to, and it just didn't fit in. And so I set it aside, and it was on my desk, and I saw it, and I was like, why wouldn't I use it? That's something else to consider. Like, we don't have to be so crazy about, no, this wasn't in week 31, I can't use it. So one of the reasons why I did feel completely fine using it, other than like I have complete autonomy, I can do whatever I want, right? But I actually was at that place taking pictures again. So I took that picture, I think it was on a Friday, and I realized how gorgeous it was. So I took my daughter back up there on a Monday morning to take her senior pictures. So I was actually at that place. I just didn't actually take that exact photo. But I want to remind you that it's okay. I mean, maybe you don't want to put one from January, but maybe you do. It's the title card. It's not that big of a deal. So I just want to remind you that, this is your project, and if you have rule constraints based on time, it's okay. You can break those rules from time to time. So you saw that I just went ahead and I stamped right onto that photo using the Hero Arts unicorn ink, and it worked out really great. I thought it stamped awesome. All right, you guys, that is the spread for this week. Simple, awesome. I really love the way this worked out. I would totally encourage you guys to try something like this, or just mix it up for yourself so you don't get bored. Anyway, if you guys like what you saw, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already so you can get updates. All right, you guys, we will catch you in the next video. Thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you later. Bye.